Welcome in, everybody, for another edition of Auburn Football Head to Head, brought to you by the Alabama Cattlemen's Association. Appreciate their support once again this season. Simone Eli alongside Peter Radicus as the Auburn football program prepares for Mercer, stepping away from SEC play. Of course, the last couple weeks of the season, the Iron Bowl, not too far away, but it will be Auburn hosting Mercer on Saturday. Kickoff time set for 1 o'clock there at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Peter, obviously, you look at last week, we knew that this was an opportunity for Auburn against Vanderbilt. Of course, Coach Durkin taking over after Hugh Freeze parted ways with Auburn, or vice versa, however you want to word that. What did you learn from that loss to Vanderbilt last week?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was obvious that the players responded well to DJ Durkin. I mean, they definitely didn't look like the team had given up. They definitely looked like they were behind him. And then you also got to look at the offense. I mean, this was an Auburn offense that really was awful for most of this year, especially most of SEC play. And Hugh Freeze calling the plays throughout this season. He's gone. Ashton Daniels is the starter, even though he did start in Hugh Freeze's last game against Kentucky. And Derek Nix, the offensive coordinator, is calling all the plays. And, Auburn has arguably its best offensive performance of the season. Put up 38 points, over 500 yards. Ashton Daniels had over 300 yards passing. And they take, a team that's right there in the playoff hunt to overtime. So, obviously, I think they were still disappointed in the loss. But it showed that this team definitely is not giving up and still has plenty to play for. At least it believes so, for the rest of the season.
What have you learned from, Coach, when you look at just the energy and the vibe that he's kind of brought? What have you learned from him to this point, and maybe in practice or just overall, and kind of how the guys are responding? I feel like there was a locker room scene after the loss that was meaningful as well. And obviously whenever there's a change, you want to rally around whoever's there, but it really feels like guys are buying into what this looks like.
DJ Durkin, from everything I've understood, was already very popular in the locker room before he was interim head coach. Obviously, he'd been the defensive coordinator the past 2 seasons, was especially popular with the defensive players in the group that he was more familiar with. But, what really stands out about him from everyone that I've talked to and we've heard from is his ability as a motivator. He's really good at just enthusiasm, getting guys ready to play, motivating. And I think when you're in a situation like this and you're just trying to keep a team together after a coaching change, that's arguably, the most important trait that you can have. And I think that's a big reason why we saw Auburn come out and play the way they did against Vanderbilt, and why I think it'll be, huge these 2 weeks going forward. And also a reason why I think there is some interest, whether it's as the next head coach or retaining him as defensive coordinator. There's a want from Auburn people to keep DJ Durkin around in some respect through this coaching change. So I think that's been huge for this team since he's taken over.
Yeah, no doubt about that. You mentioned Auburn's offense last week, of course, but there's going to be a different guy under center going into Mercer. Unpack a little bit what that situation is, what we're going to see on the Plains this weekend, what the expectation is for the Tigers as they're looking to possibly preserve another year moving forward for their main guy as of now.
Yeah, DJ Durkin confirmed Monday that Ash Daniels, who started the past 2 games, will be sitting out this week in order to preserve his redshirt year, so he have another year to play college football, and so he doesn't cross the 4-game threshold, so he can still play against Alabama and be fine. And so what that means is, both from what DJ Durkin said, both Deuce Knight and Jackson Arnold are going to play. Obviously, Jackson Arnold started the first 8 games for Auburn, was the Tiger starter coming into the season. And then Deuce haven't seen as much of him this year, but really highly touted player coming into this season. True freshman, was a 5-star, kind of high school down in southern Mississippi, George County High. And, only played in the Ball State game, but I think there's still a lot of optimism about what he can be. Some even saying, believing that he is the future at quarterback for Auburn. Obviously.
Agree with that.
Yeah, and DJ Durkin said a lot of those same things when talking about Deuce Knight this week. Watching him in practice and when I've seen him, his arm talent, I think, is what immediately jumps off the page. He's kind of built a little bit different than the other 2 quarterbacks. He's more of, he's a little bit taller, around 6'3", 6'4", big arm, vertical passer. And so I think it'll be exciting to see what he brings to this offense on Saturday. Obviously playing kind of a different caliber of opponents, maybe a better opportunity for him to work his way in. DJ Durkin hasn't announced a starter yet, but when we were able to watch practice on Tuesday, Deuce Knight was taking the first team reps during the 11-on-11 period. Throughout the season, that's typically meant that's who the starter is going to be, but there hasn't been an official announcement on that yet. So I think we'll definitely see a lot of Deuce Knight on Saturday. I think there's a lot of excitement to see what he can do in a bigger role.
Well, really quick, Peter, obviously there's Auburn is sitting at 4 wins right now. There's 2 games left, 2 opportunities to potentially go earn bowl eligibility if they're able to end the season with a win against Mercer. And then, of course, what will be an upset there at home against Alabama. Crazier things have happened in the Iron Bowl. Of course, the stakes are high in the capacity that, hey, there's an opportunity for Auburn. It's not like they're just playing for nothing. And even if they weren't sitting here possibly at bowl eligibility if they were to beat Mercer, this game still means so much. Do you think that is felt? Is that something that's, whether it's being discussed, do you think it's felt in that this is something that is very tangible for this team right now?
Yeah, I mean, DJ Durkin actually said point blank on the SC teleconference that a bowl game would be huge for this team. I mean, just for the extra practices that you get doing that with the young talent that this team has. And obviously, I mean, every team wants to win as many games as possible. They want to finish the season strong. And when you're Auburn, you want to beat Alabama. I mean, DJ Durkin and the players, they were kind of adamant earlier this week that, this week and right now their focus is on Mercer and they're not looking ahead. But I mean, this 2-game stretch, especially coming off the bye, and to get both these games at home it's huge. And it, will be interesting to see too what effect that has on maybe the coaching search and the direction of the program past these 2 weeks.
Peter, the Cattle Drive Out of Town segment, of course, brought to you by the Alabama Cattlemen's Association. If you're Auburn, who from Mercer, a fan, a coach, a player, are you trying to drive out of town, get out of Dodge, so to speak, when it comes to this game on Saturday? Who do they have to keep their eye on for this game?
I'd have to go with Mercer quarterback Braden Atkinson. Been a really, really good player this season, thrown for over 3,000 yards. What's been a really high-powered Mercer offense. I mean, this is a team that's really good at their level. Honestly, might even be better than Ball State and even how South Alabama's been playing. Probably stacks up with some of those opponents. So it's going to be a really, obviously Auburn's a level above an FCS school like Mercer, but it's still a challenging matchup. And I think Braden Atkinson is kind of the center of that with that offense. And I think that's who Auburn's going to want to drive out of town in order to take care of business this Saturday.
There are no guaranteed wins in college football nowadays. That is for certain. That's why they play the game. Good stuff, Peter Atticus. Appreciate your time. Mercer, Auburn, the Tigers will look for their 5th win, look to keep bowl eligibility still alive as the Bears come to town. Like you mentioned, trying to contain a pretty high-octane offense under Atkinson, who has been really, really good for this team and threw for like 5 touchdowns last week against Tennessee Chattanooga. So we will see what it looks like. The Auburn Tigers looking to finish strong in 2025. Peter Atticus, I'm Simone Eli. This has been Auburn Football Head-to-Head, brought to you by the Alabama Cattlemen's Association. We'll see you next week for the Iron Bowl.